All right. This is basically an overview over the restoration efforts from 2023 in Ukraine. As an introduction, I would like to read 2 paragraphs of an article written by Alexander Kubakov, the Deputy Minister of Restoration of Ukraine. In 2023, they call it the Year of Economy and Infrastructure Restoration. Just as an info, 2022 was a year of survival, basically. And the year 2023 is basically the Year of Economy and Infrastructure Restoration. This year, we have started systematic work with the housing infrastructure and urban planning. In May 2023, we launched the Bionade compensation program and restored destroyed and damaged housing. Since then, 3,836 apartment buildings and 19,091 individual houses have been restored. As of today, the process of payments for destroyed housing has been launched. The housing certificate generation process started for those who lost their homes due hostilities in November 2023. People have to get new homes under the housing certification program starting in December 2023. The restoration of social infrastructure is also ongoing. 448 schools, 237 kindergartens, and 390 healthcare facilities have been already restored. An essential task for us was to rebuild critical infrastructure facilities and build protective structures around them. The construction should be completed by the end of the year. In June 6th, the Russians blew up the dam of Novakakovka. As a result of this terroristic attack, more than 1 million people were left without stable water supply. 3 days after the explosion, the Agency of Restoration started the construction of a new main water pipeline. The first line was also launched 76 days later. Also together with our partners, we continue to protect the grid from missile and drone attacks. Moreover, we already restored 9,200 energy infrastructure facilities, 149 heat supply facilities, and 221 water disposal facilities. All right, this is just as a small introduction. Now we come basically to the data we see here. Like mentioned, Ukraine is also rebuilding and restoring the critical infrastructure. As we can see, from 781 total affected facilities, 449 were completely restored. 15 CHP, which are combined heat and power plants, basically. 2 were restored. From 624 boiler facilities, 332 were restored. The central heating points, almost every of them were restored. The water supply and the sanitation, 277 kilometers were restored. So they are working on this. Like mentioned in the introduction, the bit I read out, there is this Bionade system, which is basically a compensation program, which started in 2023. 62,819 applications were made, and payment is the payment of more than 3.2 billion hryvnia was basically granted. So already paid out 2 billion hryvnia, which is a whole lot. So basically, this system is going well. This program. Also, we can see the compensation for destroyed housing, which started in November, if I remember correctly. It's also starting already over 7,000 applications. It's a good thing which is happening there for the restoration of Ukraine. So let me get back to my notes here. Like I read out, we can go back to the numbers. almost 4,000 apartment buildings and almost 20,000 houses have been restored. Many schools, kindergartens, and also almost 10,000 infrastructure facilities. We have more to the infrastructure facilities, especially for the critical infrastructure. 1 week of blackout costs the Ukrainian economy between 9 to 15 billion US dollars. So this is why the protection of the power grid is really important. Ukraine aimed to implement a 3-level system of protection. One level is basically, the first level is basically passive protection of the power and gas facilities. There are big bags and blocks around it, right? 103 facilities in 14 oblasts are having work in progress. Level 2 is basically anti-drone and anti-Shahed protection. There are 22 substations, 63 auto transformers in 14 oblasts in build and in work and in restoration. And also we have anti-missile protection, the third level. This is for 22 substations in 14 different oblasts. Yes, now we have basically, we're going to talk a little bit about logistics, because also this is infrastructure, this is needed. Let me just give me a second. Yes, so basically the important part here is what we see down there next to the yellow box. There's written Europa, which means Europe. We can see the numbers for 2022. The logistics were the export were basically in this area at 22.4%.
Real quick, Bionade, if I'm reading the title of this correctly, the thing on the screen, it says transit and logistic potential. Is that correct?
Yes, basically. Yes, absolutely. Okay. So basically it was used in 2021 to 22.4%. Then there was like a big hike up to 62%. And now in 23, we have basically gone back down to 47%. What we have here is basically next to it is the Danube. Only 1.5% in 2021, hiked up to 12% in 2022. And now we are at 29.2% in 2023, which is quite much. The third graphic basically statistic shows us the sea routes, which had a very big significance in 2021, stagnated a bit in 2022, down to 26%. And now, since we have like more transport via rail, it seems like we are at like 23.2% for the sea routes. So let's talk a bit about the sea routes, especially about the Ukrainian corridor. We have 302 vessels which basically went through the corridor, exported almost 10.1 million tons of agro products and other products through the Ukrainian corridor. And as we can see in December, for example, there was like more grain shipped, and in November 2023 through the basically through the Ukrainian corridor and not via the grain corridor anymore. So the advancement on the Danube port cluster, the SAU together with investors implemented 15 investment projects in the port of Ismail and Reni. In 2022-2023, operational dredging in the amount of 3.3 million cubic meters was carried. And the number of pilots in the Danube basically increased from 14 to 78, which is quite much. Like you can see, we have here some big numbers. It's often hard to feasibly understand what 3.3 million tons of cargo actually means. But we see it's a big increase in the basically logistic through the Danube. So another big step for the Ministry of Restoration was the anti-corruption policy. They do this basically to a multi-layered approach. At first through international supervision, through the UNDP, which monitors the reconstruction of 18 multi-apartment buildings in Kiev, for example, which were financed under the program of United 24. We will talk later a little bit about the effect of United 24. But other systems they implemented are, for example, the DREAM ecosystem, which is an open source database where everyone can go and basically follow all these restorations projects. You can see them dot, you can see pictures and what's going on there. It's basically open source documented. Also the certification for seafarers, also a very important topic, for the logistics and for the restoration and the anti-corruption, was implemented, which also is a big step in the direction to going into the European Union. I can quote here again the Deputy Minister. Our hard work has taken the effect. The EU Council opens accession negotiations with Ukraine, a long-awaited solution to expand the United European family. And this basically, one part of these things which had to be fulfilled. So these talks can happen, where these anti-corruption policies and the transparency which is needed for the European Union. So,
Philip,
we are talking about the funding.
A question. Do you know how many of these the last projects that you were talking about, both the grain initiative, the power infrastructure, and the anti-corruption work? Do you know how many of those are in cooperation with different EU institutions or countries in the EU?
No, I don't have the specific numbers yet. We could do a deep dive in this, but we will get now a bit of an overview in the funding. So this basically should more or less answer us the question a bit. So we can see the funding here basically, how it's basically built. 92.8 billion Ukrainian hryvnia are needed or were planned for 2023. 67.6 came from 49 different budget programs, but also 24.5 billion were funds from international projects. So these are projects where basically international partners work together with Ukraine for funding, for example, the European Union and other governances. We can see United 24, which were 0.7% of the whole budget, and 0.7 doesn't sound that much right now, but we have to remember we are talking about 92 billion hryvnia, which is basically 2.3 or more than 2.3 billion US dollars. So 0.7% of this is quite a lot already. So we can see even initiatives like United 24 have an impact here. Best practices for the restoration and funding. Like you can see, this is all work together with the anti-corruption solutions building with the European Union and the Basis Institute of Governance. They have different approaches for this, especially mentioned here in part 2, the decentralization. The local authorities became able to submit projects on their own, and it's way easier if you have locally the possibility of have your self-governance ready, and you locally know where it's really needed. So let's get to the point of it's basically about these things which happened, so Ukraine is able to discuss now and have ascension talks. Basically, it's about the EU procedures and best practices, the introduction of a multi-level management and coordination between various subjects involved in the development programs and management of EU funds, the creation of appropriate tools, management system, monitoring databases, the strengthening of the roles of the ministries, ensuring the formation of state regional policies, which were necessary for joining the European Union, the definition of territorial model of management in the EU funds, general classification of territorial units for need of statistics, and the strengthening of institutions at a regional level. So basically decentralization, overview, transparency, all these things where the Ministry of Restoration had much influence, were basically done in 2023, and gave the possibility to have negotiation talks, ascension talks with the European Union. All right. Any questions to this?
Yeah, look, I can imagine that a lot of this, the funds from this, is coming from the EU. Although I don't know if it's accounted for in the specific material that you got, but that's one of the things that I know the EU has been talking about for a long time, since I guess the summer of 2022. There were already talks about reconstruction, and serious money was put on the table back then. So
yeah, absolutely. So right now we can see here 24.5 billion hryvnia came from international funds. Funds basically were from international projects. I think much of this is EU money and money from other similar projects. I don't have a specific number now, how much came from the European Union and how much will come from the European Union in the future. I will dive deeper into this for the next time. All right.
Well, thank you very much, Bionade. Unless we have any questions from chat, or you saw anything in chat you wanted to address, anything you wanted to conclude the discussion with? I mean, it seems like the restoration is going pretty well, considering the war is still in full swing. I mean, is that maybe a fair statement?
So yeah, in my opinion, it's going very well. We can see much of it because of the transparency and all the efforts they had there. So basically, yeah. Also interesting was for me the different types of protection for the infrastructure, especially for the electric infrastructure, and what kind of effects this has on the Ukrainian economy. So I think they are doing much in this direction, and should continue to do more in this direction.